Yo, it is your homeboy, MisterChunkah here, back again with another Black Ops 6 video. Today's video, I'm going over a few class setups that I have. Just thought I would share the information with some people that might need a little bit of help. Some people that play competitive but don't know what to use. These class setups I have are basically from the pros. There's a few different builds. I'm going to show you guys the builds that I use. I'll explain why, and we'll go from there. So I have two aims builds. The competitive weapons are the aims in the Jackal. I'm currently in the pub setting, but I run them in pubs. I run them in ranked. I run them in private match. It doesn't matter. So I'm just showing you guys the setups that I currently have here. So the main one that I find myself using is this one here. So every single aims build I have has a Kepler Microflex optic. This one just feels the best. I've been using it since the beginning of the game. A lot of people have been using it since the beginning of the game, so it's a kind of a non-negotiable for me there. Muzzle, I use the ported compensator. You can also use the compensator. However, I prefer to have the first shot recoil control. It kind of helps start off your shots. Your first shot's really important, so that is a big reason why I use the ported versus just the compensator. Although the aims doesn't really have much kick or recoil to begin with. Under the barrel section, I use the reinforced barrel. This one gives you some damage range, gives you some bullet velocity. It's been kind of the goated barrel most of the year. I think some people were using long barrel a little earlier in the year. There was like a different build with it, but I think reinforced is the go-to barrel for the AR. I don't use an underbarrel, and if you're using a magazine, honestly, you're kind of trolling. That sounds like a skill issue if you can't hit your shots. You have 30 rounds. It's definitely more than enough rounds in this game with fast TTK. Rear grip, I use a couple different grips. On this build, I'm using the Commando grip, which is a hybrid of ADS speed and sprint to fire speed, just regular sprint to fire, not dive, not slide, none of that specifically. The reason I use Commando grip, even though I know a lot of people are going quick draw or ergonomic, is because I find myself to be in a lot of situations where I just need to shoot and I'm not always mid-slide. I tend to think a lot when I'm moving on the map, and I find that I get caught the most when I'm not in a slide, and I just need to be able to fire my gun. 9 times out of 10, I prefer using the Commando grip for this reason. This section is kind of the most personal preference section. I mean, most people aren't using the Assault or the CQB grip, but a lot of people are using the ergonomic grip. A lot of people are using the quick draw grip, and some people are using the Commando grip, all for very different and good, valid reasons. This is the reason why I use the Commando grip, and the other grip that I use is the ergonomic grip, which is on my other build, which is pretty much identical to this with only the grip being different. And the reason why I use the ergonomic grip sometimes is because when I'm playing, I'm generally a much more aggressive AR player, so I like having that slide to fire, that dive to fire speed. If I can throw the opponents off a little bit more just by reading how the game is being played out, I will go with the ergonomic grip, because if I know that me pushing aggressively is catching them off guard, or say we're playing control and my team needs me to be in their spawn and I'm not there with a sub, this is probably my next best thing. Arguably, Commando grip can do the same thing. Again, they're different circumstantial attachments, but the ergonomic grip and the Commando grips both feel pretty good for me. I find that I will be using the Commando grip most of the time, but I will adjust to the ergonomic grip. Say if I'm getting in too many really close gunfights with a sub, then I will make that adjustment, right? Then it'll help me win or have a higher chance of winning my gunfights in close, because the movement's very quick. Subs are very quick in this game. Me as an AR has to be able to keep up, and this is the closest thing I got aside from raw stats, which the raw stats of an AR are never going to compete with a sub up close as they should. So that's why I go with the ergonomic grip. Another thing to note as well with these attachments is if I go and I take a look here with the details, you can see under the handling section that with the Commando grip, the ADS speed, the sprint to fire speed, you're getting a decent bump in both areas, which is great, right? But then when you compare this to the ergonomic grip, sure, my sprint to fire goes down from 150 to 190. Yes, it's a difference. It's not the biggest difference in the world, and I would argue that you can get away with just using the ergonomic grip, even if you have a slower playstyle. If anything, it would even benefit a slow playstyle, because if you always have your gun up, then you're not going to really get caught much with the sprint to fire. I like the commando because I find that sometimes playing aggressive, you can get caught with this without having good sprint to fire. And with that being said, it makes it easier to have your gun up at all times and be able to fire at all times, even if you're not really sliding around. This is more useful on bigger maps, even though the maps in this game aren't really huge, but for some of the bigger ones like Red Card Protocol, where you're not sliding in every gunfight, Commando Grip I'm finding takes the win for me in a lot of gunfight scenarios. You can micro-analyze the stats all day long. You can make arguments about how one's better than the other because the pros are using this one more so than the pros are using Commando. It's better. I believe Scrap actually uses the Commando Grip and abides by it completely. And also, for the last couple CODs, we've been going with builds that involve people having not only ADS speed, but also having that sprint to fire speed as well. In MW3, the MCW, we didn't put on attachments that only did one or the other. We always had attachments on that benefited both if we could. So that's also another general rule of thumb. You can't go wrong with having just base ADS and sprint to fire speed because you can work around the movement if you have to. And lastly, I'm using the Infiltrator stock. At the beginning of the year, people weren't using the stock. People were actually going with the vertical foregrip for that extra horizontal recoil control while people were getting the feel for the game. If you have a hard time handling this weapon, it really doesn't have much horizontal recoil at all, I find. Even without the vertical foregrip, you can go with that. You can even go with Ranger, but Ranger, it was like beginning of the game, like partial meta. It wasn't really the meta. There was the vertical grip, which had more usage than the Ranger. But even though some pros are still using the vertical foregrip, I think a lot of pros are moving away from it. And personally, for me, since the last couple of CODs, we've been using the stock that gives you that aim walking movement speed so you can strafe faster, which to me is more important, being able to strafe and be a harder target to hit. But now everybody's pretty much on board with it. Again, it is a personal preference. You don't have to have the Infiltrator stock on, but I prefer to do so. I love the movement speed, and it's one of the things that's constantly saving me in close range gunfights. Over to the Jackal. I'm pretty sure this is still the current build. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. At one point, the pros were using recoil springs under the firing mod section. However, with the new update, I believe that was changed because the Jackal was nerfed in its damage range. So what we got here is the compensator muzzle, which is what they swapped to. This one is just straight vertical recoil control. The first shot is very easy to hit with the Jackal. It's very consistent feeling, just like the aims. But this is just the meta attachment for the SMG, so this is what I decided to go with. Has a good feel. It controls the recoil consistently, so you always feel that consistent kick with the vertical recoil instead of having the first shot be good and say you're in a ranged gunfight where you need to be more accurate. You get that consistency at all times, knowing what to expect from the recoil pattern with the compensator versus the ported, which the first shot might be good, but afterwards it might feel a little bit more wobbly. The barrel is the gain twist barrel. This one just gives straight bullet velocity. It used to be long barrel. I think it was also a reinforced barrel at one point, but now they've gone down to the gain twist barrel to keep it more balanced. Ideally, if you're playing pubs, I would go with either the long barrel or the reinforced barrel. I would say those two barrels are a little bit better, probably leaning more towards the long barrel if I'm being honest. But if you're playing ranked and you like to play competitive like I do, then you're going with the gain twist barrel because that is the build, and I don't want to use what the pros aren't using because they're not getting realistic practice for when you're playing in ranked. Underbarrel has been the Ranger foregrip. It's been this for the entire year pretty much. I think some pros in the very beginning use vertical, but it's been swapped over to Ranger because you get that sprinting movement speed as well as that horizontal recoil control. And it's not that bad to control on this weapon. It's actually a very easy, balanced weapon to handle in terms of handling feel. The vertical foregrip is definitely not necessary on this weapon if you have any any thumbs at all. If you are a beginner, you can use the vertical foregrip, and there's nothing wrong with it, of course. You might not play the game as fast, you're not going to move as fast, so just keep that in mind, even if it's by a marginal amount. However, if you are comfortable enough and you trust your gun skill, I would definitely be going with the Ranger foregrip. Ergonomic grip for the rear grip has been the go-to for subs the entire year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. People are still using the ergonomic grip. You're moving around, you're super aggressive, you're in your face, you need ergonomic grip. You're almost always sliding, almost always moving with this gun. And even if you're not, you still don't want to get caught in a slide and not be able to pull up your gun. Lastly, you have two options for the stock. A lot of pros are using the balance stock. You get a little bit of aim walking movement speed, you get some movement speed, you get some hip fire movement speed, and the strafing movement speed. Or you can go with the infiltrator stock to get raw aim walking movement speed. And honestly, I think with the balance stock, they used to only have one tick for each, but now they have two ticks for each. So I actually kind of want to compare the difference. So you get 6% less ADS moving speed with the balance stock in comparison to the infiltrator stock, where you get a little bit more, but your overall movement speed is quite a bit faster. I mean, 11% is not bad. It only comes out to 0.6 meters per second more, but that is quite the improvement. And crouch movement speed, I mean, if you do crouch, I'm not really one that crouches often, but if you do crouch, you're getting a pretty decent bump there as well. So but I prefer to run infiltrator stock. I don't really care about having the absolute maximum amount of movement speed, because when you play the game enough and you have enough reps, you can tell who is going to get to certain locations faster right off the rip. And depending on what mode you're playing, after that, it doesn't really matter too much aside from the very beginning routes. So I prefer infiltrator stock because I want to be influenced in my gunfights again, to be able to strafe as fast as possible, maintain accuracy, and be a hard target to hit at the same time. That is the big thing. I don't want to be an easy target to hit. I want to make those people shooting against me work for that gunfight win. I'll show you guys the Strider. The pros, I believe, are either using quick draw grip or commando grip. I personally run with the commando grip. I kind of like it. Again, I'm not really sliding a lot with the pistol. And the pistol, you pull up very fast anyway, so I just want to be able to shoot as much as possible. So with the commando grip, I find that helps in most situations. I don't find myself sliding a lot with it, but if I am, it's not really that much of a delay to begin with the pistol, because it's already a very quick handling weapon. Fast Mag 1, I believe, is what you're allowed to run. I'm not too sure if you can run an Extend Mag. I'm pretty sure it's just this Fast Mag attachment, so I've been keeping that consistent. And a lot of people, this is more personal preference. I think the AccuSpot feels really comfortable. Some people are running the Kepler, some are running the Maryland Mini. I've seen Kleenex running the Maryland Mini, and I was like, whoa, like, wow, why is he running that? Personal preference. You can also run it without, so totally fine. Run a sight if you want. You don't run a sight, does not make a difference. Otherwise, these are the attachments that the pros are using. For the rest of the class setup itself, I'm kind of trolling by running Semtex. I've been running Semtex for a while. You got so many more options when you're running a frag grenade. I'm actually going to make that switch right now because I believe that running a frag is actually a bit better, and I've been thinking about that just recently. But there's nothing wrong with running a Semtex if you just want to be able to toss your grenade and go really quick. I mean, I'm an aggressive player, so I totally understand that playstyle, but when you think about the game on a deeper level, you can do so many more things with a frag. That's why I go with the frag. Flashbang or concussion, your choice. Trophy system, I use trophy system because everybody's using it in competitive, but you don't have to if you're playing pubs. You can use whatever you want. The competitive perks, though, that people are using, I think on land, some people might chalk ninja and go with dexterity, but it's very rare. I think I've seen one pro player doing, but otherwise everyone's running ninja and flat jacket with fast hands and double time. This seems to be the meta perk layout. It has been for pretty much the entire year, so those are the perks that I'm using on pretty much every class, I think. Except for my cold-blooded classes. Cold-blooded is just nice for if the enemy team has streaks against you, like a chopper or something, then you're not always being targeted by it. I'm not really one to run with a rocket launcher, so I'll shoot at a score streak. I'm not usually using a rocket launcher, so That's why I'm running cold-blooded undies. But in terms of the guns, attachments, all the same for the Jackal, Ames, and the Strider. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do not forget to smash that like button and comment down below. Lastly, do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. This has been your homeboy, MisterChunkah, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace out, everybody.